Welcome back to the GTN show. Now, have you got the Tour de France bug? Well, we have here at GTN, so much so that we are delving into some numbers around that. We're going to be comparing the Tour de France riders with Ironman Pro triathletes. Do they ride at a similar power? We want to know if their training and their nutrition compares at all. And to find out, we're going to be speaking to a man in the know, Cam Wurf.
Oh yeah, we're looking forward to that one. We also have an incredible ultra running performance, an exciting PTO US Open start list, and we're going to be looking at all the action from this weekend's WTCS Hamburg Super Sprint World Champs.
All right, on to the things we've spotted online this week, and we mentioned an impressive ultra record, and it is, again, none other than Courtney Dolewater. It's kind of just hard to get your head around what this woman can do. She has just won the Hard Rock 100 and came fourth overall against the men and has a new course record. And this was all only 3 weeks after she won the Western States 100 miles.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-blowing. I think everyone is just kind of head in their hands at the moment trying to understand it.
She still smiles. She doesn't look broken. She just sort of looks, she just makes it look so easy, like that anyone could do it. I think that's what I find just like, I find it inspiring. So I'm like, oh yeah. And then I go and run 10K and go, oh no. It's just mad.
I assume she's planning to do UTMB as well. If she is, then I'm pretty sure she is.
Well, yeah, you would imagine.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, just another level.
Wow. Well, also other crazy things. Ross Edgley, the ultra endurance athlete, has attempted to do the world's longest lake swim, which would require him to swim 170k in one go, or at least without touching a boat or land. He's given it another go, having previously attempted it in Loch Ness in Scotland and having to stop there. Unfortunately, he got to 70k into this next attempt. He was doing it over in Italy, but due to the water temperature just being actually too warm with the heat wave they're experiencing at the moment, again, he had to stop due to health concerns and everything with his kidney and liver. Yeah, it's just, it's. But what caught our eye as well was his feet.
And that's only 70k in. I mean, imagine more than double that damage to your feet. What's that going to look like? That is a new level of. Just pretty revolting dedication. But I mean, hats off to him. I feel his frustration having struggled in Scotland because the water temperatures were unseasonably cold. It's now gone the other way. Our climate is doing some crazy things, but hopefully he finds the right conditions and gives it third time lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on, we have this post spotted, it's sort of almost old news now, but we spotted it after we'd filmed the show, from Paula Finley and Eric Lagerstrom. Well, I'd imagine to become Paula Lagerstrom because, maybe, or who knows whose name taking. But that's very true. But yes, they have just got engaged whilst out on a run, which I think is really lovely. So congratulations to those two.
Yeah, great news. They were almost already a power couple within triathlon, weren't they?
Definitely.
So great to hear that. Also spotted this one from Gwen Jorgensen, which is quite interesting. She was getting stuck into some crit racing over in the US with her partner Pat. And then she had planned to do another one, but then very last minute got a call up for the WTCS race in Hamburg. And so change of plans and off out to Hamburg to race in the super sprint format, which we'll be covering very shortly, and let you know just how Gwen got on. Well, I know we are triathletes, but for the month of July, each year I find myself fully distracted by the Tour de France. And this year is obviously no different. The GC is heating up and I'm finding myself just glued to the edge of my seat. We got the world's best cyclists duking out day in, day out. And that has actually got us thinking here at GTN. How do these Pro Tour riders compare to that of our Pro Ironman athletes? What are the differences in their power, if anything? How does their training differ? What's the nutrition like, one versus the other? And so much more.
Yeah, I mean, before you say it, there are some obvious differences. We know that. I mean, the Tour de France is a multi-day race. Well, in fact, it goes over 23 days, covering almost 2,000 miles and almost 3,500 kilometres. And some say it is the toughest multi-stage, multi-day race. And then you've obviously got Ironman, which is a single-day event. However, you've got a 3.8k swim beforehand and you've got the marathon run after. So some argue that it is the toughest single-day event. So whilst there are obvious differences, there are also similarities. And we want to have a little bit of a comparison and a bit of a debate ourselves. But we thought it's better to actually hear from someone who really understands the ins and outs from both sides. So Grand Tour rider and pro Ironman athlete Cam Wurf has shared some very interesting insights. Started off by talking about the power number differences.
Yeah, I mean, the average power, for example, is generally always almost the same as in the average. It's always around 300 watts plus or minus, 320 on a hard day, maybe, 280, 260 on a easier day. But it's like the normalized power, which is quite huge, because you get those big spikes. And nowadays, it's pretty uncommon for that normalized power number not to be around 350, 360 watts. This is like assuming someone's around, 68 to 72 kilos, somewhere in there, that size.
I mean, interesting that if you did just take a snapshot, it looks the same with the numbers from the outside. But obviously, when you dig deeper, there are some huge differences. And it's not really a surprise with the type of racing, the type of course and the duration that you've got.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that in mind, the training must obviously be quite different too. And interestingly, Cam has predominantly for most of his season been focusing on cycling, but more recently switched to Ironman. And that has become pretty much his sole focus. So it'll be interesting to see how his training's changed.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they train for that normalized part because it's on or it's off, So when they're training, they're sort of way above that average zone. Very, and then when they're, the easier days is obviously well below that. Whereas I guess with Ironman training, it's more consistent, I mean, you need to just become a very effective and efficient at that actual power, those power ranges. So, they have to have the ability to go, 400, 450 watts for 15, 20 minutes, and then sort of recover at, 250 to 300. Whereas, for us, it's obviously much more effective to be very, very efficient at 300, 320 watts. And, save all those, I guess it's ATP is one of the big fuel sources and one of the big eaters of glycogen. So, once that sort of, you save all those stores for the run because that's when we need them, more so. Not that you're sprinting on the run, but obviously the energy demands are quite different. Well, it's the end of a long day and that's where you need all the reserves you can get. Whereas, these guys are training for, those explosive efforts and being able to recover from them.
Well, we obviously spoke to Cam for some time and there was some great nuggets of information in there. What was interesting, though, was that his overall training hours per week hasn't changed a great deal, if at all. In fact, he pretty much does the same number of hours per week, just now split across 3 different sports. But what has changed is the intensity of some of those workouts. Some of his teammates are going out there and doing these super hard workouts that they're riding to pretty much complete exhaustion, having to keel off their bikes, but then having to recover the next day. Whereas Cam is essentially trying to knock out good sessions day in, day out that he can consistently just keep training day in, day out, rather than going to complete exhaustion.
Yeah, I mean, so many interesting insights. Cam also talked a little bit about nutrition, which I guess it shouldn't be that surprising, but he says his nutrition is pretty much exactly the same. Obviously, he won't be taking on fuel during the swim and then the run will tail off. But for the bike section, he said that a couple of years ago, he was already up at the high end when we started, I guess, talking about how 100 grams of carbs per hour or more was a lot. But Cam's been doing that for quite a long time. He said the only real difference, especially in his team, that they get most of their fuel in bottles form, but just because of the intense racing, sometimes it's hard to be able to take on solids or gels and get packets out when you're having to really keep an eye on your handling a bike in all sorts of conditions. So that was, I think, the main difference in the format as opposed to the amount.
Yeah, now we were also able to pull upon the knowledge and experience of our partners, Precision Fuel and Hydration, who actually, fortunately, work with a Pro Tour team at the Tour de France, Lotto Destiny. And also, they obviously work with notable pro triathletes like Fenella Langridge, Leon Chevalier, and many others. And we're able to look and crunch some of those numbers. So interestingly, they said they've taken kind of a snapshot case study of 4 athletes from that Lotto Destiny team, and they're all averaging in excess of 100 grams of carbs per hour. And then they're drinking approximately a litre of fluids per hour. Now, if we just take Leon as an example, he's doing pretty much the same. So on the bike, he actually take the Ironman World Championships in Kona, for example, he took on 139 grams of carbs per hour just on the bike, and then 80 grams of carbs per hour on the run. Obviously, he sort of preloaded a bit on the bike there, but that averages out at 105 grams of carbs per hour. So pretty much the same. And then also 1.3 litres of fluids. And similarly, in Ironman South Africa, it's very much the same. So really interesting. There aren't really, we're pretty much doing the same thing. The only differences are maybe just considering when you take stuff on for the run and various things like that. Yeah,
and having to sort of preload a bit. I mean, Cam also said that actually, again, with the cycling, they'll be really hammering in the nutrition early on, which is a little bit like triathlon because you can't take quite as much on the run, like we're seeing with Leon. But the fact that obviously at the end of a GC race, if you're up there in the mix, you're not going to have time you've got to be reacting to every move, so you wouldn't have the time to take on the nutrition so much either. So it's quite a lot of similarities.
Yeah, well, this is obviously such an interesting topic. And we've actually kind of pulled this together very quickly because we were just quite excited. It was a topic that we were discussing in the office here. And I think this warrants a full-blown video here on GTN and pulling upon the PFNH expertise and various other people. So watch this space. But before we go, I've actually got one more question for Cam. What is harder, a multi-day stage race or a single-day Ironman race?
It's funny because when you do a really good Ironman, or a good Ironman, you get through the whole thing, you run the whole thing, etc., and you recover from it, you feel really good, like you feel quite strong, and that's a bit similar to it, and it makes the rest of your training. That was another reason I put myself through what I did the last number of weeks, because it makes the training now, your relative point is different. You know what you think is acceptable. I mean, I ran 41k on Friday last week, and that didn't seem like a big deal. Whereas back in May or June, when I hadn't really done much training or done any racing for a while since last year, that the thought of that would frighten the jingles out of me. But and it's a bit similar to guys, when a Grand Tour, they finish a Grand Tour and they come back to training and they're just able to, do an extra effort. They're able to train longer hours, etc. So, I think it's incomparable, to be honest. I think they're both extremely hard. And also it depends on your role. I mean, if you're riding GC, there's a completely different fatigue level to someone like me who, rode in support of Carapaz, and then, once my job was done each day or I got dropped, you ride easy to the finish. I mean, you're spending probably nearly 20 hours of the race not even racing overall. It's an hour every day. Sometimes obviously a bit less, sometimes more. So, it's there's a few very different factors, and I think it's quite a bit unfair to even try and compare them because, they're both phenomenal levels of athletes. The top Ironman guys are incredible, and obviously the top cyclists in the world are incredible. And I think it'd be unfair to say which one is harder.
I think that's pretty well said, isn't it? Not totally surprised by his response there. Well, we do really look forward to watching Cam in Nice. Thanks so much, Cam, for joining us on today's show. Now on with the show, and then we can crack on with the Tour de France highlights after.
Oh, yeah.
Well, now on to the race results. And this weekend we had WTCS Hamburg, which was a super sprint World Championship. So it was quite an exciting format. So we had 60 men, 60 women starting over this 2-day format. So essentially they raced over a 300-metre swim, 7.5-kilometre bike, which was over 3 laps, so fast and furious, and then a 1.75-kilometre run. The competition started on Friday. They had qualification rounds. They started with 2 heats. The top 10 from each of those heats made it through to the finals. And then the remaining 40 athletes then took part in 2 repechage races. And then the top 5 from each of those made it through to the finals. Then the next day, we had the 30 finals athletes racing over 3 rounds, with the final 10 or last 10 in each round getting knocked out. So pretty exciting if you understood and followed enough of it.
Yeah, I mean, brutal racing, but super exciting to watch. But at the end of the day, there is only 1 gold medal for the men's and the women's after all of that racing. And the men's race was won by Hayden Wild, who just seems to be on absolute form. But he was pushed. It was incredibly tight On that final run, Vasco Velaka had an incredible run to finish second, and it was Alex Yee who made it third on the podium. But just to give you an idea of the calibre of the racing, Christian Blumenfeld was in fourth, I think just 1 or 2 seconds behind as well. So super, super close stuff, even after all of those races.
Honestly, please go and check out the clip of them coming into the finish line. It is ridiculous how fast they're going.
Yeah.
And Christian was right there in the mix with the 4 of them. So, yeah, fair play to him. He's really kind of come on
going
in the
from
short
Ironman
distance.
to down to that is quite an extreme difference,
Yeah.
isn't it? Well, the women's race was won by Cassandra Bougrand, an incredible performance for her as well. Beth Potter didn't manage to quite whittle her down, so she settled for the silver medal. That was in her own words. I hate using that word, settled, but I did see her post that. And Laura Lindemann from Germany rounded out the podium in third.
Yeah, we're talking of Germany. They took the mixed team relay win ahead of New Zealand in second and then Switzerland in third. This weekend, we also had Ironman 70.3 Swansea, which was a fun course from what I understand. It was quite technical
I heard a lot
and challenging.
about it beforehand. Everyone was talking about it.
A lot of people, I think, were saying, well, I probably wouldn't have done the event if I'd known quite what the course was like. But actually, once it was all finished, everyone was had enjoyed it. So it was Emma Pallett-Brown that took the win there, and very convincingly, she just had a blistering run, absolutely just, ran away with it. Nikki Bartlett in second. It was Sif Bendix Madsen that actually had the fastest bike of the day, but just drifted back a little bit on the run.
Yeah, well, the men's race was won by Antonio Lopez. I don't know how he would have found the wonderful Welsh weather. And then Dieter Comher second and Jack Moody in third.
Yeah, very well done to them all. I did see that Justus Nieschlag was actually off the front for a lot of the race and unfortunately got a puncture. So sadly, he eventually had to pull out. But yeah.
Oh, I'm surprised there weren't more punches.
Yeah, we also had Ironman 70.3 Ecuador. That was won by Elizabeth Bravo ahead of Anna Torres. We also had Sarah Crowley racing there, who actually led off the bike. She had a substantial lead. I think it was a 2.5 minute lead off the bike, but she had, and as we've seen on social media, some stomach issues, and she ran in with a 2:05 half marathon, which is very slow for her normal standard.
I mean, hats off that she carried on, did that, because for her to run that slow, that must have been a very painful half.
Yeah.
Well, the men's race was won by Armando Matute. Second place, we had Fernando Toldi, and third, Andre Barrianuvo.
Yeah, we also had Ironman Vittoria over in Italy this weekend. It was a women's pro-only event. That was won by Grütze Lerald ahead of Svenja Toes and Els Visser in third. Notably, also we had Michelle Vesterby in fourth. And the reason I read that out is actually because one of our friends of the channel, Steph Clutterbuck, who's now on the Zwift Triathlon Academy, an amateur athlete, actually came kind of fourth overall. So she was faster than Michelle Vesterby, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I mean, her swim, she got a swim course record. I think she swam 49 minutes, so 10 minutes quicker than the overall winner. And I think biked the same time as Gurutz as well. So it's just, she's got a kind of, her run is coming, but I mean, that's incredible performance.
Goes without saying, she took the overall age group win. So yeah.
Well, we'll be following Steph's progress closely. But upcoming this weekend, there's a very big race because it's the final chance for the men to qualify for the Ironman World Championships at Ironman Lake Placid. And we've mentioned him a few times on the show over the last few weeks, but Alistair Brownlee has withdrawn from a few start lists, and this is his last chance. So we really hope that he can perform, because we all want to see him race.
I unfortunately don't really have any insight as to whether he is doing it or not. I'm sure probably the next day or so we will find out before this show comes out. But yeah, there are obviously a few other notable names that are not qualified as of yet. So yeah, be interested to see who actually turns up and race. We also have Ironman 70.3 Oregon, and quite excitedly, although it's not this coming weekend, on the 4th of August, we have the PTO US Open in Milwaukee. We have the start lists for that, and also the wildcard athletes. So for the men, just picking out a few notable names. I mean, we've got Christian Blumenfeld, Magnus Ditlev, Christian Hogenhaug, Alistair Brownlee down, Aaron Royal, Daniel Bakker, Ben Knut, Frederick Funk. It goes on. Lionel Sanders, various. I mean, they're all it's just the best in the world, basically.
It's amazing.
And then to add to the list, as our 4 wildcard athletes, we have Jan Frodeno.
Who?
It's kind of mad, isn't it, that he's a wild card? But yeah, because of his ranking position due to sort of lack of racing, he doesn't make the automatic qualification. We also have Martin Van Riel, who actually hasn't raced a PTO race before, but a very, very strong athlete. And I think he's probably got quite a lot to show over the middle distance or longer distance format. Mark de Brick and also Tim O'Donnell, who has raced this year and won Ironman 70.3 Peru and finished fourth in Ironman 70.3 Gulf Coast. So yeah, he's in good shape too.
Yeah, well, the women's side is looking for a very interesting battle. I mean, Ashley Gentle has excelled over the PTO distance. So we've got her, Paula Finley. Those two have had some great battles over the last 18 months. Chelsea Sodaro, maybe something to prove after the last couple of performances. Laura Phillip, I think, is doubting whether we don't know if that's confirmed or not, but Taylor Nibb, Holly Lawrence. We've also got Kat Matthews back racing after sort of taking her time to really come back strong. We know she only races when she's really ready, so I think it's going to be quite exciting to see her. And yeah, again, the list goes on. Sarah True, who's just come off the back of winning an Ironman. There's a very, very strong women's field. And now on to your photos, and as you're probably aware, we've been asking for pictures of you looking broken, not being actually broken, and you guys have sent in some great ones this week. You've got another week left to share your broken pictures, so make sure you do that using the uploader, which is on screen now and also in the description below. And this first one comes from Argo from Estonia. He says, me being sleepy after finishing the Estonian Forest Triathlon in 20 hours and 20 minutes. So a 3.8k swim, 180k off-road bike. So basically an Ironman distance, but off-road. An awesome adventure again.
And he went 15 minutes faster than last year.
Hey. Well
I mean, I know that pain where you literally just want to sleep at the end.
Yeah.
We found out last week.
Yeah, we did.
Our next one from Beatrix from the 113 Cotswold Classic middle distance just down the road from us, from the GTN Mega Base. Post-race broken picture after my first ever middle distance race. So chuffed, but so tired. Well, very well done to you.
Yeah, you look like very unaware of what's going on around you there. I like it. Raw picture. This one from Steph from Horn in the Netherlands says, during an Ironman 70.3 in West Friesland, absolutely demolished after a very hot race. Ran the last few kilometres with some stomach cramps, and when the photographer asked me to smile for a picture, I only wanted to run towards the nearest toilet. Luckily, after a while, I already felt a lot better and was happy to finish this race, as was my brother. Oh, so yeah, I think one of those pictures is a while after the race, from what I can gather.
I have got, from a race very, very many years ago.
Where we go with this?
I could only think of the toilet for the last few kilometres of my run, crossed the finish line, kept on running straight to the Portaloo, and passed out on the Portaloo. And that was me in there for the next half hour, so before someone found me.
Love those little stories. Yeah.
Post-race broken stories there. And next one anyway from David. This is from Outlaw Holcomb. Coming over the finish line, feeling particularly broken, having had to complete the bike leg single speed. I came into transition the morning of the race to find my DI2 had failed. A quick mechanics assessment confirmed the battery had chosen this moment to completely fail. So I had a pre-race mental battle with myself deciding whether or not to race. Needless to say, I did the race, but the constant grinding and spinning out, stuck in one gear for 90 kilometres, played havoc with my legs, making the run more painful than it should have been, but still finished in 4 hours, 52 minutes, which was quite a long way off his target time, but I've got to say that is still very, very impressive, so well done.
Well done there. Next one from Curtis. This is a bit of a throwback to Clash Daytona in December 2022. It says, got injured in the October, barely able to train, but went to Clash Daytona since it was already paid for, an 800-metre swim in chilly temperatures, contemplating why I decided this sport. Yeah, you're not the only one to ever contemplate why you might have decided triathlon, but I'm sure afterwards you were relishing the fact you'd gone and turned up, so well done.
Absolutely. Last one here from Amy. This is really quite impressive, actually.
Yeah, it is.
She said, just landed in France after completing 31 miles from Guernsey. So they apparently actually have become the first ever person to complete that swim in 16 hours at 13 degrees Celsius. As I took this photo, I told my crew, this is what a champion looks like. I thought I looked a bit more alive. I know you feature mainly ultra runners alongside triathlon content, but here's some ultra swimming. No, we feature everything. We just, by chance, happen to be quite interested sometimes in ultra running. But
I mean, more hats off to that. I think it's more because I can't fathom doing that long in the water. So.
Very, very, very impressive. Well, as Heather said, we've got one more week of these broken photos. Send them in using that photo uploader link on screen right now or in the description just down below. Say what? Right, this week we have this caption or comment from Stephen Crescenti. This is under last week's show where we talked about the departure of Andrew Messick as CEO of Ironman. And I posed the question, should Heather be the CEO. And it looks like you got some support. Stephen Crescenti, Heather as CTO! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, love heart. I think you got a fan.
I mean, yeah, I've got to do a bit more campaigning, I think, but I'll take the first vote happily. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll pool all our pocket money for your
my
for your campaign.
Yeah, I think I might need a bit, but it would be awesome to have a woman at the top. But I can think of a few who might be slightly more skilled for the job. We've also got some other suggestions here. M. Marchetto says Sebastian Kienle for CEO would be the best thing.
It's quite fun, isn't it? Mark Rowe, 4952. Joe Skipper as CEO has my vote. That got a lot of likes. Nothing against you, Joe. I'm just not sure if you should be CEO of Ironman.
Oh, it would be entertaining.
It would be very entertaining. Got a lot of love for Joe. But, yeah. Also, I did spot this comment from Paula Miller under our video with, Heather made this video with some help from Emma Pallant around periods and racing. I said, I'm an older age athlete, no longer deal with this issue, but when I did, it simply wasn't discussed. Thanks so much for addressing this important topic and taking away the shame. So,
thanks for that. Yeah, thanks for that comment, Paula. And if you guys haven't seen that, it's really lovely comments. And big thanks to Emma, who's obviously smashing it out there at the moment, which is really cool to have her on our videos. Yeah.
Well, that is it for the show this week. Thanks ever so much for watching. If you have enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up, give it a like. We have got some exciting stuff coming up on the channel. You may remember a few weeks back, or if you follow us on social media, Heather and myself took on an almighty challenge of cycling a very long way to a triathlon event, doing a triathlon and then attempting to cycle home. I'm not going to spoil it. It didn't go so well for me. I just cycled into a headwind for 180k to the actual triathlon, and a ridiculous headwind, and I think it near broke me. Heather, you
I did a different route, but equally broke me mentally and physically. Prepared us for the next challenge, which we'll talk about next week, which we've just done, and we're now recovering.
Yeah, but stay tuned because that video is coming this weekend. And if you haven't watched it already, and it is of interest to you, we have done a lot of features and content around the men's Ironman World Championship course in Nice this year, but also for the women because it will rotate for next year. We've got a course recce video, and also this weekend or weekend just gone, James did a feature looking at road bike versus TT bike, which bike is suited best to the course. So make sure you go check that out.
Yeah, well, hopefully you have enjoyed all of this content. Do give us a like to support the channel.